You're more than that, right? If you're just a production machine, then you're not a human being. You're just a production machine. And so you're less human and more machine, right? And when our lives become measured by just production, I get we have to produce that. I get that we have to get stuff done. That's very clear. But when that becomes the only way that we see ourselves, then we miss this whole part of life.
When life throws a challenge at you, one thing is certain. To find a resolution for every issue, every problem, for everybody, there's more than one way.
All right, so we're going to start with the poem, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Are you guys into poetry? Is that a thing for you?
I like poetry.
Yeah.
I don't always seem to know where to go to find it.
Yeah.
But when someone shares it, I'm often like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I'll sometimes go and look at the author or something like that. But
yeah. I think poem and people who write poetry can really kind of get at the depth of life, oftentimes in a condensed form.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other week I found this this poem from Mary Oliver and used it out at Lakeshore, you know, the dog church, Lakeshore, Sundays at the Shore, whatever you call it, the outdoor service that we do. And it goes like this. It says at the top.
You have it memorized?
I have it memorized. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Impressive.
It is.
It's instructions for living a life.
Okay.
Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. And so, that's for her a way to live that brings fullness of life.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. And that just takes me directly into nature for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just that's where I went with it on at the Sundays at the Shore. And it sticks with me because I just think nature is the place where I personally find healing. Nature is a place where I find beauty and mystery and wonder and awe. And her poem just kind of captured all that. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. And the pay attention is probably not, if not the most important, it's in the top 3 of importance in almost every spiritual tradition that there is. And it's so important because it's so easy not to.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
And so she starts with that to say, gosh, if you don't start here, then you'll miss so many things.
Right.
Did you ever do that?
Miss things?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, like can you think of a time?
Sure. Yeah. The other day I was walking home from work, and I walked past a building that's nearby, and there was this whole area of flowers, and it was about almost like 4 feet off the ground, just all different colors, and they were huge, just all they looked fake. They were so in bloom and kind of perfect, and I saw them, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so I went over and looked at them and took a photo, and I was like, oh, that's really neat. And then it hit me. I was like, I've walked past there multiple times a day, multiple days in a row, and have never seen those.
Yeah.
I was like, what? How could I miss them? I mean, and now every time I walk past there, I think about them as I'm approaching that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to see those flowers. They're right there, But it was, for whatever reason, I just blocked them out, just walking past. And I mean, it's something pretty small, but
no, it's huge.
It was a big deal, and it did. I mean, it stopped me, and I thought about it, and I've thought about it since.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like I passed it by and went, oh, cool, flowers.
That's right. Cut one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge deal. And I think, once again, that's what the poem's trying to get at. That when you pay attention, it's not, you'll have to force yourself to be astonished. Mm-hmm. You will be. it will happen.
And I think, a lot of times that leads you to more questions or more insight with the idea of, saying, well, somebody put those there.
Yeah.
And somebody planned for that. Somebody tended those.
Yes.
Somebody's aware when they bloom and what they need. It wasn't just like they appeared.
Yes.
And so there's a story behind the story, in so many layers, that kind of leads to that astonishment sometimes. Just the more you start to think about it, the more that's there.
It's a great example of kind of people interacting with nature and bringing almost more order and beauty than it might have still been there, but it made it more available to you. Let's put it that way. Because a lot of times, in order to see something like that, you might have to go way out into the nature somewhere. But the truth is, once you notice something like that, then there's a good chance you might notice other things,
right?
And other things, and I think that's why paying attention is just so important. I've said this at Lakeshore, and I say it all the time. One of the ways I try to do this, and I'm very intentional about it, is I try to get up and get out and have a cup of coffee while I'm walking all around our neighborhood, and I can walk the same route over and over and over again and see something new every time. And one of the things that oftentimes can happen that is counter to what that poem was trying to get at, instead of paying attention, being astonished, and telling about it, I can often kind of sleepwalk and then maybe barely notice something and then judge it and then complain about it.
Yeah.
Right?
We're good at that.
Yeah, man. So it's like I was in that mode. I bring that up because I was in that mode when I was walking, because this was a few weeks ago when it was just super hot every day. And it was, even in the morning, there was just no relief, and it was hot and it was humid. And so that limited my ability to pay attention because I was so focused on how hot it was.
Gotcha.
Right? And it limited my ability to not paying attention, limited my ability to really see what I was in, to walk around and to be in it. And I really kind of value that time because it helps me start the day when I'm in a good place, when it's the pay attention, be astonished. And I can enter into my day in a very optimistic, positive way. And this was putting me in just the opposite place, just life is terrible. It's always going to be hot, and just really, really bothered by it throughout the whole walk. And I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get my head out of it. And then one of the roads that I walk on is Glenbrook Drive, and one of the roads that I walk on is Craig Road. And where they intersected, there's a turn. So I turned from Craig Road on to Glenbrook. And I swear it was almost as if as soon as I turned, this breeze hit me in the face.
Oh, wow.
So it was just like this gift, because it wasn't like super cool, but it was cooler than the temperature.
Yeah.
And I looked up and there was just these dark clouds everywhere, and they came in and they blocked a bit of the sun and a bit of the sky, made it kind of blackish gray. And it could have been ominous, but it really wasn't, because it brought these winds. And now, and I'm not so narcissistic as to say somehow or another that was given for me. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that happened.
Yeah.
And the poem's right. When I paid attention to that, I noticed it, and it was as if somehow or another the wind just like slapped me across the face and said, I'm right, pay attention.
Yeah.
And then I could just and I really was, the whole rest of the walk, I was just astonished. I was just amazed at how it pulled me out of this place of life is terrible because it's so hot to thank goodness. What a gift.
So what pulled you out of it?
That breeze.
The breeze.
Yeah. And it was as if the breeze was I don't want to get too weird, but what the heck? Let's get weird for a second.
You already talked about it smacking you in the face.
Yeah, smacking me in the face, and so it was It was as
something.
if it was a presence. Yeah.
Okay.
And it takes me back into all the spiritual traditions that, that say breath, wind, and what's the third one? Breath, wind, and what's the third one? Spirit. So breath, wind, and spirit are all the same word.
Mm-hmm.
Breath, wind, and spirit are all the same word in Greek. And so it's trying to get at that mystery once again. And this is part of the pay attention, be astonished, because life is this deep mystery. And I've walked that path over and over
many
again,
times.
Many times. But this was like feeling the wind and the air and seeing the clouds, all that, like for the first time. And so, and it lasted all the way till I got to my house, and it was just fantastic. And then when I got ready for work, it was hot again, right? I mean, it's not like it's magic and erases everything. Yeah. But in that moment, I got to have that experience.
Yeah.
And the poem just reminded me, don't forget things like that and share them.
Share them with people.
Yeah. Because sometimes in order to pay attention, you need somebody, so I do, to point it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you're talking about the flowers.
Yeah.
So maybe next time I walk over in the direction you're talking about, I'll look for those flowers.
Maybe you'll see them.
See if we can see them. And all this stuff seems so daily, if not just kind of monotonous, or it could be considered monotonous, or just, but this is where we live most of our life, right?
Yeah.
And that's the power, I think, that the poems and things like that are trying to get at.
Well, and this one, to me, I mean, it's incredible because, I mean, there's such an economy of words.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's barely 7 words, maybe, but it says so much.
Yeah.
And there's so much depth to it. It's hard to write something short versus something long.
Yeah.
And just think about just the conciseness, which she was able to say what she wanted to say.
And to have the restraint to not try to over-explain it.
Yeah.
And let people do with it what they will. You can do with it what you will. It can, for me, it was like that wind. It slapped me in the face. It woke me up, when I was looking for something to take out to Lakeshore. It just jumped off the page. It's like, this is enough. And here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? And, I think it's really important for our day and age to have anybody at anything that points us to look at not only nature but ourselves, because we are a part of nature and we are nature in some way. So anything that helps us to take a look at that.
Say more about that. What do you mean?
What I mean is, because we live in this modern world, and kind of like you walking past the flowers, we're thinking about the next thing we have to do.
Sure.
Or what we've done before. We have our plates are full.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not bad. I'm not saying that's bad. But I am saying at times it's a limiting thing. It limits our paying attention.
Right.
Or what we pay attention to. So then therefore it limits our life. And so nature in that sense can just become a backdrop. Can just become the thing that's just we don't really even pay any attention to. It's just the thing that's either helping us along, or it's annoying because it's raining, or it's too hot, or whatever it is. And it's not this alive presence that we're a part of. It's not. I'll tell you another thing. So another way to see it that goes right along with the poem is a verse that's a part of a passage in Scripture where Jesus says, and he's saying this to people within the context of when you find your life and when you find yourself being anxious about life, and you get too anxious, especially about things that are just kind of really not that important, things like what you're going to wear or what you're going to eat, or things like that. Yeah. Things that really you don't have to worry that much about. You're going to have clothes and you're going to have food. Okay, so he's saying when you find yourself in that place, pay attention to nature. The way he puts it is notice or consider the wildflowers. Notice or consider the lilies of the field, because they don't toil or spin. Yet I tell you, in Solomon, who was, this fancy dude, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of we. Is not as beautiful as one of these flowers.
Hmm.
So when you find yourself in that place, go out and pay attention, like this poem saying. Yeah. But really, by pay attention and consider and notice, it means fully engage. So fully engage what's right in front of you. Oftentimes because of how busy your life might be, you just don't notice. You just don't see.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. And my granddaughter, I talked about this the other day, my granddaughter Sophia really helps me with this one because, and I think all kids do this, and pets can do this, and those are the two big ones, pets and kids. Mm-hmm. They really can help me stop and pay attention, stop and notice, because that's exactly what she does.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? So we took her to the park the other day. It's probably been about a week. And we got to the park, and she gets out of her little stroller thing that we pushed her in, and everything's new. She's been in that park 50 times, but everything's new on the park. And she goes and she's going at everything, every little thing she's trying out. And then after she does that, then it was every blade of grass, checking out the bugs, checking out the sticks, and everything was worthy of her attention. Now, she doesn't have a giant attention span.
Yeah.
But she does have the capacity to kind of say, hey, stop, look at this.
Yeah.
And
with fresh
eyes.
Yeah.
As if it probably in many ways was the first time she saw that stick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the kind of stuff that that verse, this poem, and so many things in the spiritual world of all types try to get us to do. Slow down, stop, take a look, and really engage what you're seeing, and look at it as if it's for the first time.
Yeah.
Don't get into the been there, done that mindset.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the reason people in this world, spiritual world, poems, scripture, are trying to write and say stuff like this is because it helps us. It's a help.
To take that time.
Yeah.
To notice.
It does something to the human soul.
What is that? What is it doing?
Yeah, what is it doing?
Yeah.
You tell me.
I don't know. I mean, I wonder about that, but I've had moments where I feel something.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's connection or energy or companionship or, just
right.
it does something.
Right.
It's true.
Okay, so I can tell you on a large scale for me, and I can tell you on a more day-to-day scale. Which would you rather hear? Or both?
Let's hear both. Yeah.
Okay. So, on a large scale, it's the first time I did a vision quest. Okay, so I did a vision quest when I was 38. And a vision quest is, the way we did it is, we went to a very, very remote place in Canada, an island out in a lake in Canada, Lake Temagami. And the first week is really kind of just getting ready, getting prepared. We did dream work. We did some other things to try to help us just get connected to the land. Mm-hmm. And then after the 5th day, on the 6th and 7th day, you go out on your own, and it's for 2 days, and you don't have food or water. Okay. And you draw a circle, an imaginary circle. You find a spot and you draw an imaginary circle, and you go in the circle and you stay there. You don't leave the circle.
Wow.
For 2 days, right? Highly recommended that you don't take a watch.
Yeah.
Right? Because the time will creep along.
Yes, I bet.
Right? And sometimes it did. Sometimes the time crept along. But it gave me in an extreme way time to do with these things that we're talking about. Right? And so at one point, I sat there and this reminds me of just being with Sophia. I sat there and watched this ant. Mm-hmm. Right? So, what do you do for 2 days in a circle, right? So I just sat there and watched this ant. And this ant had something. I can't really remember what it was, if it was some kind of food or if it was just like a stick, but it was bigger than the ant.
Mm-hmm.
And the ant's carrying this thing, and it would drop it, and then it would go back and pick it back up. I mean, and it took, I don't know how long it took, but because time wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah.
It took as long as it took. And this ant was so persistent and so strong and just stuck with it. And I watched that, and I would have never had the opportunity to do that.
Right.
But when I did it, watching that, I was astonished. I was amazed. I was in awe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it does for us. Because somehow or another, we have to be awakened to and astonished to this whole thing that we're a part of,
mm-hmm.
that we get to witness when we pay attention. So that does something to your soul. It expands my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's sitting there, and then, both nights I got to watch just the sun going down.
Yeah.
So then you just have I had that just deep sense of connection and peace. And then, for a while it would just be, the sun was up and it was just kind of hot, and I had to figure out how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a potential for rain, and if it had rained, what would I do, right? And I'd have to deal with that. And all that does something to and for us.
Yeah.
It touches our emotions. It opens up our mind to something greater than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what it does. So that's on the big scale. And like I said, and then with Sophia, she was like a mini vision quest,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we'd stop and look and stop and look. Cindy brought over an inchworm
Uh-huh.
on a stick. And that little inchworm that inches along, and it was super, super green. And she's screaming, green, green, 'cause she can say green. So, so it's inching along, and we're just watching that. And, that's how we spent our time.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So that's what, and what I'm saying is, I think that the people, our ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, were trying to say, this really works.
Yeah.
This really helps your soul. This heals you. This calms you down. This helps you to feel connected to it. This excites you. This opens you up to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
This challenges you.
Yeah.
So that you have to figure out how to deal with it.
And it's across so many different traditions.
Yes.
Sharing that same thing.
The same thing. There's not one that goes, don't pay any attention to that. I don't know. There's not one spiritual tradition
that
one
goes,
died
off.
Nah.
It didn't make it.
It's not good at all. It's like, no, just stay inside. Yeah. That's right. I didn't make the cut. Because we are a part of nature. We are nature.
Mm-hmm.
And like heals like. It heals us. It's huge. So that's why. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And you can talk about it forever and ever. And I think somehow or another, the more I can do that, the more I love it, and the more I want to take care of it. The more I want to see nature. I want Sophia to have nature the way I have nature.
Yeah, you want that for other people.
Yeah.
To have the same connection and astonishment.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell about it, because the more we tell about it, that's how it kind of spreads, and it reminds us, oh yeah, that's right.
It was funny, earlier when we were kind of talking about this, somebody mentioned a place that was really special for them, and several of us kind of went, at the same time, because we know that place.
Yeah.
And just the mention of the name when they shared it was enough to take me back just a little bit to remember what I like so much about it.
Yeah. What was that?
I think just the feeling there, the view, the breeze, the grass. I mean, it's just a very picturesque place. You have to kind of climb to get up to it. And it just brought back memories that I've had there. And I think just that sharing piece. I mean, you don't even have to share it in a lot of detail sometimes when there's that connection.
Well, what's the place so that maybe somebody out there...
Oh, yeah, the place is Max Patch.
If
you've been to Max Patch up in North Carolina.
Yeah,
section of the Appalachian Trail goes through there.
Does it?
It's a really pretty spot. And the view from there is pretty incredible. So
Yeah, well, it's once again, the more that we talk about it, and the more you might even remember
Yeah.
people who've said things like that, times where you've been touched.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can just go on and on about it because I think part of it is because when I was a kid, I just was outside so much.
Yeah.
You know, just growing up in South Florida, we could be outside all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got used to it. And when I was 38 and when I went on that vision quest, I think I was at a time where I felt extremely separated from it all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very, very overworked, very, very worried about work, worried about a lot of the things that a 38-year-old
Mm-hmm.
husband and father worry about. And I felt very, very disconnected from it all. And so to go out and have that amount of time
Mm-hmm.
really, really kind of like what Sophia does, reanimated the world, re-enchanted it for me.
Yeah.
So that I'm not just blowing past it. Sometimes I get it. We have to blow past it.
Yeah.
But like you're saying about Match Patch, it's, yeah, but there can also be times when,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the reasons why the, in particular, the Judeo-Christian world had Sabbath. I think the people who came up with Sabbath were trying to say, okay, we got it. You got 6 days where you're working.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. That just seems to be the way that the world is. I'm not saying it's that now, but when they were writing. But you got to have one day. You got to have at least one day where you're not worrying about all that stuff and that you're able to do some of these things that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a gift. It was meant to be a gift to try to say to people, if you don't do this, when you don't take time to consider, to pay attention, to be astonished, to notice,
Mm-hmm.
to engage,
To be reminded.
when you don't do any of that stuff, then life feels like it's just about production. And one way to see the Sabbath is 1/7 of all life should not be productive.
Mm. And they could sense that then. You think about our level of production now,
Yeah,
our feeling about that now.
Yeah.
And just
And
our need for that has not changed.
No, it's just increased.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, that's why we need to be reminded. That's why we need these poems and the scripture and this conversation. And hopefully people will listen to this conversation to try to say, this is a gift for you. It's not an obligation. It's not a you have to. It's a try it.
Yeah. Just give it a try.
Give it a go and see what it does for you. Don't give it a go once and go been there, done that.
Yeah.
Give it a go. Keep going.
Yeah. And thinking about Sabbath, I mean, are you talking about just doing nothing, or like that you're supposed to just rest? Or I don't know. I think there's some misconceptions around what that is and maybe what it looks like today versus what it was. Or
Yeah, it was no. So I think, once again, trying to get into original intent, I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
but the idea isn't to do a specific thing. If you just sit and don't do anything and that works for you, cool.
Yeah.
But the idea is for you to not try to produce stuff, not do what you're normally doing the 6 days during the week.
Gotcha.
You know, do something that restores you. Do something that's takes your mind away from your responsibilities for a while.
Yeah.
So that you can see you're more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're just a production machine, then you're not a human being. You're just a production machine. And so you're less human and more machine.
Okay.
Right? And when our lives become measured by just production, I get we have to produce that. I get that we have to get stuff done. That's very clear.
Sure.
But when that becomes the only way that we see ourselves, then we miss this whole part of life. We miss all this stuff that Mary Oliver is trying to write about, that particular scripture verse is trying to get at,
Mm-hmm.
and that on and on and on. And that little kids just seem to naturally know.
Yeah.
And dogs. And cats.
They just
maybe
get it.
guinea pigs.
Guinea pig. Yeah, I think so. I think that's it's a challenge, and,
Yes,
and it's not just a challenge to do it. Sometimes it's a challenge to try it.
Mm.
You know, like
Yeah.
you were saying earlier. I think sometimes we just I don't know. Either we're jaded or have tried before and it didn't work, or
Yeah.
we're just like, I don't know. Maybe we don't even have the energy to try it. At
Yeah.
that point, maybe we need it so bad we can't even
Get off the
figure
couch.
that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And that's what I kind of mean is I felt like I kind of got almost that far when I was 38. And then usually for me, I needed a big injection of it. I needed a huge amount of time. Kind of the daily, hey, notice the flowers and take a walk. And I needed and so you'll have to decide where you are in that. And if you're in that jaded, cynical, that won't do any good place, then I'd say, man, go away for like a week if you can do it and be outside somehow for, do something to really, really put you out in it. And I just swear it will work. Mm-hmm. It will work on some level. Your heart will be touched somehow. It's my experience, and it continues to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just can't say it enough. And so once again, I'll just come back around. Finding Sabbath in this day and age in order to do stuff like that, it might not be one day a week. You might not have that freedom. So maybe it's an hour a day. I don't know. And you might not have an hour a day. I don't know. Then do 15 minutes then. Mm-hmm. You might have more time than that. Then you can spend a couple days. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, a vision quest. Like that's what I was trying to say with Sophia. It can be
smaller.
Smaller, right where you are. Like you talked about noticing the flowers. Mm-hmm. That's a good place to start. But don't be guarded. Let the feeling come that comes. Let beauty touch you.
Don't slip into that judgment.
Yeah, don't fall into that calculated mind. Oh, somebody must have worked really hard. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And that's a fine thing. Yeah. But it's what do the colors do? What does the smell do? What does the sight of it do? What does it do to you? And let it come. Don't block it. And if you cry, cool, that's even better. That's probably the best. Because it's saying, this has touched me in such a way, I'm moved. Yeah. And man, if life can never do that, like I'm saying, we're moving into Darth Vader territory. That's what I mean by we become more machine than human. Yeah. You are more than what you produce. And nature will show that to you, I think.
So when you were talking about that we are nature as well, you think we can show that to each other?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Definitely. I'm saying, I'm saying it with Sophia. Yeah. So a lot of times what I think is I let my guard down more with her. Okay. Yeah. So I'll let her touch me. Yeah. And somebody else, I'm not saying walk up to like a stranger and start bawling. I don't mean that, but I do mean, just honor how someone touches you, metaphorically speaking. Mm-hmm. Honor that, that person, just the kindness that you see that somebody does for somebody else maybe. Yeah. Is just such a beautiful thing in this world that can be very harsh and mean.
Yeah. So just observing that, seeing that can change your outlook.
Yeah. Observing it, noticing it, considering it, giving thanks, astonishment. Yeah. Because we are nature. That's one of the things. Unfortunately, at times I think we separate ourselves from nature. And I understand, part of separating is so that you can see something. But in the end, we're not separate. All the stuff that nature's made up of, we're made up of.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than One Way podcast, brought to you by the Center for Spiritual Practice in Knoxville, Tennessee. We really appreciate your time and would love to hear your feedback. You can reach us by emailing hello@morethanonewaypod.com, or you can connect with us on social media using the handle @morethanonewaypod. If you found this episode helpful, we hope that you'll share it with your friends, with your family, with people you work with all the people who you know. Thank you and take care.